What's going on YouTube? Today we're going to be making a player health script and an enemy damage script so that we can have some actual functionality to this. So first we're going to make a C# script. Let's call it player health. Open that up and we're going to import the library unityengine.ui. And then we're going to need 7 variables, so I'm going to cut till after I've already made them and then explain them. Okay, so the first variable is health, pretty self-explanatory. The second, max health. The third is dead. We're actually going to set that to false by default. The fourth is we need a reference to the player movement script that's on the player. We can have that private because we can just set it in the start menu, or start function. And this slider is going to be our health bar. The image is going to be our reference to the color of the health bar, and then game over. This is going to be our game over screen. Let's call it game over screen actually. So when the player is dead, this is going to be showing, and they're not going to be able to move. So in the start function, we're going to have 2 lines. We're going to do health equals max health, player movement equals get component player movement. Alright, and then in the update function, we're going to have a new float. So float health percent. We'll set that equal to health over max health. And that's going to allow us to set the value for the slider. So we're going to do health bar dot slider, and it takes a number between 1 and 0, or health bar dot value. So we're going to do 1 minus health percent. And then next we're going to have an if statement. So if health percent that's greater than or equal to 0.5, then our health bar color, so health bar color dot color equals color dot green. And then else, so if it's less than that, we're going to copy and paste this over here, and it's going to be red. So now we need another if statement, so it's going to be if is dead. And so if the player is dead, we're going to have we're going to do player movement dot enabled equals false, because we don't want the player moving around. And we're going to have we're going to do game over screen dot set active true. So that's it for the update function. We need one more function in the script, and it's going to be a public take damage, or public void take damage. And this function is going to take a float amount. So it's the amount of damage that the player is going to take. And this function is going to get called by the enemy damage script at some point. Yeah, we're going to start with an if statement. So if health minus amount less than or equal to 0, then we're going to do health equals 0 and is dead equals true. And then if that's not the case, health equals health minus amount. And that's it for the script. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go back into our game. We're going to make a new script called enemy damage. So this is going to go on the enemy game object, and it's going to be responsible for actually doing damage to the player. So we don't need a start function, we need a couple variables. So here are our variables for this. The first one is attack damage, pretty self-explanatory. Attack speed, also pretty self-explanatory. Then last hit, that's going to be the time between, or the last time the player was hit, to make sure that they're not being hit too often. So this is going to be it's going to also determine how often the player can be hit. And then obviously we need a player health script, and a we're going to have a boolean for touching player. So we're going to set that to false actually by default. And then in the update function, we're going to do if touching player and time minus last hit is less than or is greater than or equal to attack speed. And then we're going to do ph dot take damage amount. Oh wait, no, shit. Attack damage. Go here. Alright, and then we need two more functions. We're going to do an on collision enter. If collision dot game object dot name equals player, then touching player equals true. And then we're gonna repeat this for a on collision exit, and the only difference is we're gonna do touching player equals false. So when a collision happens between the player and the enemy is gonna detect it, and while they're still touching player is gonna be true, and then once that collision exits, touching player is gonna be set to false, and then that's gonna allow us to do whatever's in the update function. So let's test it out. So before we can do that, actually, we need to go into our canvas and add a couple things. Alright, so in our canvas, the first thing we want to add is a slider. We're going to call this health bar. And we're going to untick interactable, because we don't want it to be interactable. And then we're going to go into the handle slide area, find handle, untick that, because we're not going to use it. We also need to add a game over screen. So we're going to add an image. Call this game over. Press F while still or with your mouse over the scene, and zoom out, and you can kind of see the scale of these. So first, actually, we're going to resize the health bar. So I'm going to move that down more towards the joystick. Width is going to be 600. Height's going to be like 40. And that should work for that. And for the game over thing, we're going to change the color first to red. But the alpha value be like maybe like here, because we don't want it to be opaque. And then we're going to resize this using that tool, and going to make it just the size of the canvas. And since our canvas scales, if it's the size of the canvas, it'll work for pretty much any resolution, theoretically. So we're going to make a UI object as a child of the game over thing. It's going to be a text. The width to like 600 and 200. We're gonna say game over. Center that. Make the color black and make the font size a lot bigger. And have the font style be bold. Pretty good. Put that up here. And then the last thing we're gonna do is add a button. We're not gonna actually program this yet. It's gonna be a respawn button. So we're also gonna make this 600 width by 200 height, and then edit the text of the button to say respawn. Set the font size bigger, obviously. Let's just rename the button to respawn button. Save that, and then we're gonna go back into our actual game over object. Just disable it for now because we don't want it enabled when the game starts. And go into a player, go into our player object, drag on player health, and we want to assign all these variables. So health, should keep that at 0. Max health 20. The health bar, you can just click the circle thing. It's the only slider in our scene. The health bar color, find where's this background. And then for our game over screen, we're gonna click the circle as well and just search game over. And that should be good for that. And then finally we're going to go into enemy, drag the enemy damage script onto him. And the only thing we need to assign here is the player health. So just select that, go to player, save, and let's see if this works. So it looks like it's working now. Ooh, what is that? Why did that happen? Alright, so it looks like we got kind of an issue here. I'm going to figure that out and get back to this. Alright, so I found the issue with our script. If we go back into it, we just had to add this line. So we had to reset our last hit variables. So in this if statement, after we do ph.take damage, we need to add last hit equals time.time. So now if we go back into our game, we play it, that should work. yeah, so you see it's not going down immediately, and yeah, that's about it. Looks like it's working fine. Probably have a new episode out by tomorrow, so if you enjoyed this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and see you later.